Hey soccer fans, this is Nick back with the Feed the Fire podcast, and we're talking Chicago Fire, Major League Soccer, and US Open Cup in tonight's episode. The Chicago Fire are coming off their fourth straight victory across all competitions, that being a 2-1 victory over Detroit City FC in the Lamar Hunt US Open Cup, all the way up in Hamtramck at Keyworth Stadium up there. So the Chicago Fire get the win, they advance, we know who they're playing in the next round, but first they've got to get past an FC Cincinnati team that's also looking to go on a bit of a point streak themselves. We're going to preview that FC Cincinnati match, talk about what happened in the Detroit City match, and then look ahead with some US Open Cup predictions. If you want to get involved in the show, add to the conversation, you can reach out to me. GlassHouseSoccer@gmail.com is the email address, and you can find me across social media platforms at GlassHouseSoccer, and the Feed the Fire podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. And if it's not, let me know, and we'll get it done. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes of the show, I do want to give a quick shout out and a thank you to Jeff Tebbetts of Cincy Soccer Talk. He invited me on to their show Jersey Swap, where they talk with the upcoming opponent, kind of get the news on the club as well as preview the match. So it was awesome talking to Jeff earlier tonight, Thursday night, about the World Cup and what happened with Chicago's bid. What's going on with the new stadium, as well as looking ahead to what's going on this upcoming weekend. Also, very interested to know as to why we would let go of one of their top players, Tom Barlow. So we had a little chat about that. So go ahead and make sure you find Jeff Tebbetts on social media, find Cincy Soccer Talk online, and get ready for the Jersey Swap episode to come out within the next day or two. I'm going to apologize both to Jeff, to everyone at Cincy Soccer Talk, and to everybody who watches the show. I was having some technical difficulties on my end. I'm going to assume it was my kids and my wife just streaming multiple movies and shows all at once, and it totally ate up the bandwidth in my house because I was having some connectivity issues, had to flip to the mobile device, had to flip the cameras. So whoever's doing the editing over at Cincy Soccer Talk, I am sorry and thank you. And to Jeff, thank you for your patience. It was great to catch up with you after a few years. You know, if I didn't mention it on your show, Jeff, but you were the first interview I did after starting the Feed the Fire podcast. So it was really cool to see early on in my podcasting about the Chicago Fire, probably a month or two into it, that someone was taking notice that we're gaining a little traction. And again, thanks to all our listeners who keep bumping the show up in the algorithm and in the ratings. I appreciate it very much. All right, let's take a look back at the Chicago Fire's match against Detroit City. The Chicago Fire had a few regular starters in this matchup and ended up rolling out their typical 4-3-3 formation. We saw Chris Brady start in goal. We had the center back pairing of Joel Waterman and Jack Elliott. Left back, Victor Radojevic. Right back, Jonathan Dean. Midfield trio of Mauricio Pineda, Sergio Orahel, and David Pareba. You had Jason Shokalook getting his first start as striker. Zinkernagel on the right wing and Dithejane on the left wing. So we're going to go over some of the match notes, but guys getting their first start for the club, as well as a heavily rotated lineup. We did see Borso, Haile Selassie, Saletros, Ludd, and mbokazi all get subbed in during this match, and it was all Chicago could do to keep Detroit from completing the comeback. Shokalook puts the Fire on the board in the 34th, and then 2 minutes later in the 36th. He played extremely well. His goals came from outworking, out-hustling, and also out-reading the defense. His first one came off a free kick from Philip Zinkernagel. It was practically a corner to the left of the attack to the keeper's right. He just beats his defender, gets in front of him, gets that near post position, and is able to flick it in and above the goalkeeper. The second one, a beautiful through ball is played to him, and he is able to just get the defenders on skates, turn them around, and fire a shot. I think he goes right under the legs of one of the center backs who is tracking back and goes into that far post, just sneaks it inside that post out of the reach of the keeper. So again, outworking opposing players, precision shooting, and just having a great shift for the Fire. So we'll see if that's enough for Shokalook to get some first team minutes this upcoming weekend against Cincinnati, with the health of Hugo Kuiper still in question. Now, he did train with the team today, but I don't think it was full participation. So we will see if he, being Hugo Kuipers, is good to go on Saturday. But we still got Haile Selassie, who's in form. We still got Shokalook, who's coming into form as well. Now, looking at the stats of this game, it really kind of underlies the momentum shifts that occurred. The Fire ended up with 53% possession in this matchup, but my goodness, as much as they dominated the first half, Detroit City controlled the second half, and they put the Chicago Fire under constant pressure, to the tune of Detroit getting off 15 shots this match to the Fire 6. However, the Fire put 3 on target, 2 in the back of the net, and Detroit City 2 on target and only scores 1. The Fire had a much better passing game, 80% completion rate over 341 passes, but the Fire were forced to commit a lot of fouls. They gave up 24 fouls in this matchup, and that includes 3 yellow cards and a straight red card to Dithejane. And that sequence of events around on either side of that red card is what really, some people are calling it the magic of the Cup, but to me it's the chaos of the US Open Cup, because we see Detroit City come back and find a goal. Smith, the other South African player on here, not just Dithejane, not just mbokazi, but Smith for Detroit City, their striker, one of their star players of the season thus far, another South African transfer. So he finds the back of the net after beating Dithejane off the dribble, after beating Radojevic. The winger for Detroit City beats Dithejane, beats Radojevic, blows by them, gets the cross off, and Smith is able to convert it, and that stands for their goal. That was in the 79th minute. Dithejane gets his red card a minute later. After the restarted play, the Chicago Fire are again on the back foot. Credit to Detroit for really trying to pressure this team and really trying to dominate this second half. They were throwing everything at the men in red. And in the 80th minute, Chicago just kind of clears the ball up and over into the opposing half of the field. It goes over Ditejane's head, and he gets tangled up with a Detroit City player. Now, personally, I think the Detroit player is probably running his mouth a little bit at Dithejane, and Dithejane, being the young, immature player that he appeared to be on this play, either catches him with an elbow or a punch to the head. Other people are saying they saw him cleat the back of the leg of the Detroit City player. Regardless, the referee saw whatever it was and did not hesitate to issue a straight red card. Dithejane takes the punishment, walks off the field. There was really no argument or no scene or commotion caused by he or any of the Chicago Fire players. So just judging by that, because we really couldn't see it. Thanks a lot, Paramount Plus and the US Open Cup feed there. It was really glitchy, especially during that moment. So just the fact that he really didn't protest it too much suggests that, yeah, he really did take a shot at that Detroit player for whatever reason it was. And now Dithejane was having a meh game to this point. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself to some player analysis here, but let's finish up this 5-minute chaotic sequence. They get the goal. Dithejane gets the red card, and then a couple minutes after that, a freight train comes driving right past the stadium there. People are giving the freight train the horn sign. He's coming by. He's blowing his horn. People are egging him on. He's blowing the horn even more. It was absolute chaos for about 5 minutes. And then, of course, it just gets the crowd into it. You hear the roar of the crowd. You hear the support. And it really elevated the play of Detroit City. And they had the Fire on the ropes. But It was the Fire in a 2-1 decision. Survive and advance. That's the name of the game when it comes to tournament play. No matter what sport you're in, survive and advance. We saw the Fire throw out a very rotated squad, getting ready for their matchup against Cincinnati, looking to take some points on the road. Also having to think ahead one more game to their next matchup in U.S. Open Cup. They will be taking on none other than St. Louis City SC on Wednesday, April 29th. This will be played at Bridgeview Stadium here in the Chicago suburbs. I haven't seen any information on tickets yet, but rest assured it will be coming out. Now I just got to figure out a way to convince my wife to let me head down to the south suburbs there on a Wednesday night to go take in the match. I think I can do it. By the way, if anyone wants to write in, send me an email, comment online or something, just say, hey, Nick's wife, he's good to go. We give him permission. I'd appreciate that. I think that'd be great. All right, looking at some of the player analysis before we go over the official recap of the match, I put out a comment on Twitter that said, during the U.S. Open Cup, a lot of players on the end of Major League Soccer rosters will take advantage of this opportunity to showcase why they deserve more first-team minutes. No one on the Fire did that, and I think they probably did the opposite. Now, I got called out pretty quick on that, and by the way, thank you, Transcendental Willie, for calling me out on the comment, for keeping me honest, and for engaging in a good conversation on social media. And he said, yeah, Shokalook, 2 goals. He's definitely played himself into some first-team minutes. And obviously, you're right. Obviously, a guy who scores 2 goals in his first start for the team is going to increase his stock and definitely make a pitch, especially this weekend with Kuipers being less than 100%. Not sure if he's going to go. Definitely increased his stock there. But I was looking at guys like Puso Dithejane, who had an average game at best and then gets the red card. I was looking at a guy like Sergio Orahel, who had been a starter last season, kind of fell out of favor for Davila, and now is still battling with Soletros, Davila, and Ludd for minutes in the midfield. He ends up having a slightly above average game. I still have to keep telling myself he's only 20 years old, but I think he's kind of a long-term development for the Fire, but still, in 78 minutes, had a decent passing record, 55 of 60 passes, though I'd love to see how many of those were progressive passes versus lateral or back passes. Had 5 defensive contributions, and here we go. Only 4 of those 55 passes ended up going into the final third, and this is according to the Foot Mob statistics, and I think they get their data from Opta as well. He only won 1 of 6 ground duels, but was 2 of 2 in the area duels. So not the best performance from a defensive midfielder who is going to be asked to progress the ball. That is where Jay Davila has shined above Orahel, Pineda, and even Soletros to this point. He will advance the ball. He may not always successfully take on the opposing player, and he may sometimes, make an errant pass or lose the ball off the dribble. Sometimes he's kind of like a little bit of that baby giraffe, I think, or like that teen giraffe who's still coming into his body a little bit because he's so tall and so big and strong. But he will progress the ball, whether off the dribble especially, but will look to play the pass. Orahel still has trouble breaking down the press and playing out of the back. He and Pineda both have some difficulty making those passes out of the back, and Pineda had been an excellent passing D-mid in college and an excellent passing center back when he gets those spot starts and spot play in center back for the Chicago Fire, but Davila has surpassed them. And so for Orahel to not have as good of a game, it just kind of solidified his place on the bench. We also saw Viktor Radojevic make his first start with the club. Had a decent shift, played 90 minutes, 27 of 37 passing on 62 touches, 8 defensive contributions, but he does get beat for that goal. Ends up winning 6 to 9 ground duels. So he looks to be a decent one-on-one defender, but needs to work a little bit on reading those wingers. Are they going to just try to blow by him? Is the 21-year-old going to have enough speed to make up for it? Is he going to be strong enough to challenge those wingers coming down the flanks of the field? These are a few questions that may not have been answered in this Detroit City game. All in all, performed pretty well, but enough to say, are we going to start him over Jonathan Dean in the event Barroso is still out, or if, assuming Gutman starts, and then it's a question of Radojevic and Dean. Maybe Radojevic will always be behind Gutman if he's solely on the left, but I don't think he did enough to even make it a conversation to start him over Jonathan Dean. So those are a couple guys that I was looking at that I'm like, you really had an opportunity here against a lower division team. Now, I'm not trying to denigrate Detroit City's talent, but they are a lower division team. They are, I think, third in their conference in USL Championship. But these are guys that MLS should be challenging and playing well for. Now, Radojevic, again, in what's technically his second season in MLS, but his first where he's actually healthy. And we saw a lot of USL teams upsetting MLS teams or taking them late in the games into extra time into penalty shootouts. We saw Orlando City catch a break against FC Naples when the ball crossed the line and it should have been a goal, but for some bad officiating, that would have, I don't know if that would have put Naples up or if it would have drawn them level against an Orlando City team who's struggling. We see Knox County knock out their MLS opponent. Who is that? I'm trying to think of. One Knoxville SC beats DC United. We see Louisville City defeat Austin. So I'm not trying to have the argument yet of, is USL catching up to MLS or is USL on par with MLS? I'm not trying to have that conversation because I think there's too many variables, especially when you see an MLS team like the Fire in this case putting in all these players getting their first start. It's hard to make those comparisons. That a choice starting 11 of an MLS club against the choice starting 11 of a USL club, probably going to favor MLS 9 times out of 10. But again, it's part of the conversation and it's part of the evaluation of these younger Fire players. We did see. Let's see. I'm trying to think. We did see Borso get into the match. Trying to pull up the final lineup here, and I think had some pretty consistent play. Borso is a guy who I think is probably going to be getting more minutes than Shokalook will. I think in the near future, even though Borso is 19, they do need some help on the wing, but at this point they need help up striking up top. So maybe we'll see the two of these guys play together a little bit over the weekend. But Borso, a guy who really didn't have too many minutes. What was it, 6 minutes in this match? So really nothing to take away. Maybe because he only got 6 minutes in this U.S. Open Cup match, we expect him to feature a little bit more in this weekend. Now let's quick get through the match recap here from the Chicago Fire communications team. A couple notes to go over here. In his first start for the first team, Jason Shokalook scored twice in the span of 2 minutes. As a lot of people were saying on social media, it was shook and awe on the night. And although his goal and brace were his first with the Fire, he's no stranger to scoring, recording 6 multi-goal games in 22 matches last season en route to a 20-goal Golden Boot campaign for CF2. And according to some other Fire reporters, robbed of the league MVP that year in MLS Next Pro. Next note, besides Shokalook, winger Puso Dithejane, midfielder David Pareba, and defender Victor Radojevic earned their first starts with the Fire in an official competition. All 4 played no fewer than 78 minutes, with Radojevic getting all 90 at left back. After recording his 21st career MLS regular season clean sheet in the win against Atlanta United last Saturday night, keeper Chris Brady earned his second win in as many matches against Detroit City. The homegrown keeper recorded 1 fewer save in Hamtramck than the 2 he recorded in the 4-0 victory last year in Bridgeview. And final note of the match, this match marked the start of the 26th edition of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup that Chicago has played in. So the Fire have been in 26 U.S. Open Cups, I want to say out of 27. The Fire recorded win number 48 in the competition. So the Fire, think about that. If they've played in 26 U.S. Open Cups, they've won on average just under 2 games every go-round. The Fire have advanced to the next round for the 52nd time. And so those 48 wins in the competition and advancing to the next round 52 times, I'm assuming if they get to like the semifinals and they start in the round of 32, then that counts like 2 for 1 that tournament. But both of these are records for MLS sides in the Open Cup. So the Fire arguably and probably have the best history in the U.S. Open Cup of any Major League Soccer team. They have won it 4 times on top of the records that we were just talking about. And if they win it a 5th time, they will be the first MLS club to hit 5 wins. And like I said, they will take on St. Louis City on April 29th, 7 p.m. Central down in Bridgeview. A couple of quick notes on the bracket. Now that the round of 16 is set, New England will face Orlando. Winner there will take the winner of Columbus and 1 Knoxville. In the other quadrant of the bracket, we've got a Hudson River Derby in the U.S. Open Cup. Red Bulls taking on New York City, and winner will play the winner of Charlotte and Atlanta. So that is a very, very fun bracket, or quadrant of the bracket there. Some great Eastern Conference rivalries, some great geographic rivalries. That one looks fun. Meanwhile, in the Fire's quadrant, they'll take on St. Louis, and winner will play the winner of Houston and Louisville. In the last quadrant, we've got Colorado Rapids taking on the Colorado Switchbacks, who defeated Sporting Kansas City 3-0. Now, I know Kansas City is not good right now, but that kind of sucks. That kind of sucks for them. And then San Jose takes on Minnesota. Winner, again, going on to face whichever Colorado team. I'm kind of optimistic that the Fire have the easier part of this bracket. If they can get by St. Louis, they will likely play Houston, a team that they did find some success against, even though they didn't get the winning result, even though they lost in the season opener. I think I'd rather face St. Louis and Houston and then go on and face either Colorado, San Jose, or Minnesota in the semifinals, rather than having to face either New York team, Charlotte, Atlanta, Columbus, New England, Orlando. Like, I would rather be where the Fire are in this bracket. I think they have a very, very good pathway. Maybe the only easier one would be if you're New England or Columbus, facing Orlando and a USL club. Anyway, not to belabor the point, I think the Fire have got a good chance to make a run at the Cup. I really hope they do it this year. Last year was not part of their goals, and I think it needs to be now. Moving on to the Fire's upcoming match against FC Cincinnati, taking place this Saturday, April 18th. It'll be a 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Again, make sure you follow Cincy Soccer Talk and Jeff Tebbets and find all the information you need about FC Cincinnati from them. But real quick, they're 10th in the Eastern Conference on 7 points, 2 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. So definitely not the way they want to go. Every time it looks like they're progressing in the right direction, they take another couple steps back. This past match, they drew TFC 1-1, and it was on a Kenji Mboma Dem 92nd minute equalizer. Yeah. The big news out of this match, though, was that Kevin Denkey, one of their primary players, one of their focal points in the attack, was sent off in the 71st minute after getting a second yellow card, so he will be out. The other thing that Jeff and I talked about on their jersey swap episode was the injured back line. Matt Miazga left this game early in the second half injured. I think a groin injury is what Jeff said. Miles Robinson also may be out, coming back from his own lower body injury. I think also a groin there. Is he going to try to work himself back into shape and maybe be considered for the U.S.'s World Cup side? Is he going to push it, or is he just going to take it easy and realize, his World Cup dreams are over? Also, Cincinnati, I didn't bring this up with Jeff, but come on. I know you're linked to Neymar here, but the Fire already tried that. Okay, if you really want to get Neymar, people were criticizing the Fire for going after an old Neymar, and now you're doing it almost 2 years later. Yeah, not a good look. Not a good look, Cincy. Also, a couple other players to highlight. Pavel Buka for Cincinnati was called up by Czechia for their World Cup playoffs in March, and so he is a guy to keep an eye on. for this match. Additionally, Brian Ramirez, an Ecuadorian international, was acquired this offseason to fill the spot that Orellano vacated when he took off to Monterrey in Liga MX. And then finally, Ender Echenique is described as a live wire who often plays on the right wing and is likely going to be part of Venezuela's national team for the 2030 World Cup cycle. So there's some names to watch there. And as far as their actual production, Cincy has not scored a lot of goals this season. They have scored, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 goals on the season? 10 goals? I should just go check on the standings and look at the table itself rather than trying to tally up a whole lot of ones going down their roster. Yep, Cincy has scored 10 and allowed 16 in their 7 matches thus far. It's Kevin Denkey with 2, and then it's Barlow, Haglund, Valenzuela, Buca, Jabari, Echenique, Mbokazi, and Smith, all with 1 goal apiece. Now you want to look at assists. Similarly, it's Samuel Gidi leading the way with 3 assists for the team. Then it's Echenique with 2, Denkey, Buca, Jabari, De Silva Ferreira, Miazga, Powell, Ramirez, all with 1. It's crazy to still see Alvis Powell playing in MLS. If you want to talk key passes, it's De Silva Ferreira, Ramirez, Denkey, and Echenique, who are head and shoulders above the rest of the team as far as their key passing numbers. So those would be the guys to watch on the attack. And yep, Alvis Powell, 31 years old, still doing it for the blue and orange in Cincinnati. Not bad. Cincinnati, in their last matchup against TFC, trotted out a 3-5-2 formation, something that we may expect as Fire fans. We may see that depending on the injuries and the lineup that Berhalter wants to roll out. I think he'd prefer to go with his usual 4-3-3, but given injuries and just minute rotation, you may see a 3-back system with Gutman, or a 3-center-back system with Gutman kind of being that roaming wing-back there, and he may end up trying to stuff the midfield, match Cincinnati's formation, and play for a draw. And that's why I predicted over on the Jersey Swap show at Cincy Soccer Talk a 2-2 draw. I think the defenses have been stretched too thin by both teams, so I do think there will be some goals finally for these guys, but I think the Fire will be more than happy to settle for a 2-2 draw. Now, Jeff did predict a 1-0 victory for Cincinnati, but of course he would. He's the home team. He's going to predict a win, but he does not see a lot of offense happening in this matchup. Well, that's everything I wanted to talk about tonight. I thought I'd get in a real quick episode, but we're coming up on a half hour here, so yeah, never had a problem filling time. But thanks again for everyone who's tuning in, listening, liking, subscribing, rating, reviewing. Let's keep driving that algorithm up with some good reviews, some social interactions. Let's keep driving that listenership up with some of the sharing of the show and sharing of the link. And one final shout out to Mike Rom, who posted a comment on Spotify saying, "Can't find the post-game press, so good to hear you and good commentary. We'll follow. Thanks." Mike, thank you. I appreciate you not only listening and following, but taking the time out to leave a comment. It means a lot. We're having fun here. We're meeting people. And for anyone who's out at the game or at any of the home games, you ever see me? Yell, wave, shout hello, and as always, let's go Fire.